Um,
Well, that sucks for us out here. I mean, that's
Absolutely.
$300 a barrel. I mean, that's like for every 3 barrels you buy here, you get a fourth one free back there, or every 2 you buy
yep,
here.
no, I agree.
Yeah, that's amazing. Now we were talking earlier
Exactly.
on the phone, and you brought up some good points about racing locally versus or regionally versus nationally, and let's kind of talk about some of your experience on there and what the points you brought up earlier on the phone conversation we had, because I thought there were some really interesting points in there.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing, like racing, like the stuff we've been doing nationally, the big thing too is these national races we've been racing at is like entry. I mean, I'll be honest with you, we went and ran the Show Me 100 here last year it was, and the car and driver for 3 days was $100.
Car and driver for 3 days.
$100.
Oh, man.
Me and 3 days, $400.
You're breaking up pretty bad down on your end, John. You there, bud?
Okay. Yep.
Okay.
But yeah, so when we were at Show Me, like I said, for myself and Justin and 3 pit people for 3 days, all in was $400.
That's cheap.
That's amazing.
Pretty cheap.
Yeah.
That's pretty cheap. But also in kind of some of the things, going back to what you were talking about, chassis and different things, I think a lot of the cost of what's happening now is technology. I mean, and the way cars are being set up, they're not being set up on scales that much anymore. You're getting your baseline and going from there, but it's forcing the racer to be more. You're having to buy spring smashers, shock dynos. You're having to buy more equipment to keep up with the technology, which is raising the cost of the racer from a national level, and it's still raising the price locally if you can afford to do that.
Yeah, because you're going to have your 4 or 5 guys in each region that can do
Justin
that.
has a comment.
Go ahead.
I think a lot of it has to do with, around the country you got a lot of regional racers that buy race cars from guys on a national touring level because for whatever reason they feel like they're going to get an advantage by working with a guy that races nationally. So in order for them they can buy those cars from them, used cars, whatever it may be, from them all day long, and it's not a problem. But for them to get help from that certain individual that has all that high dollar equipment, they can't do anything with a load number for a corner of the car if they don't have a spring smasher. So that part of the chassis setup kills a guy that is racing at Willamette Speedway or any other local racetrack across the country, because say I'm friends with Josh Richards that drives for Best Performance, or Brandon Shepard even, that's in a house car at Rocket. Say I've called and asked a question and they gave me a set of load numbers to put on the car. Well, if I don't have a spring smasher that costs anywhere from $4,000 to $8,000, I don't have the way to compute that information into something that helps me. So what am I going to do? Brandon Shepard wins lots of races. So what am I going to do? I'm going to go out and spend that money because his information is valuable to me. So that then raised your cost of racing.
Very true. I mean, knowledge is not cheap, no matter what field you're talking about, but especially in racing, because guys don't give that stuff away. I mean, if you have to buy if you have to buy that one certain individual part for your program that costs $4,000 to $8,000, that's $4,000 to $8,000. That's a lot of money for anybody.
That's 4 barrels of fuel.
That's $4,000 to $8,000 that I spend, that the next guy's going to spend, that the guy after that's going to spend. Because if you have it and somebody else doesn't, it's an advantage. And guess what? We're racers and we love an advantage.
Absolutely.
So I think that has a lot to do with it. We talked earlier about, and you mentioned it on the show earlier, engineers being hired by chassis manufacturers to design a car. I know what it costs Rocket to design their newest car, via an engineer, and they're making their money back in the price that they sell their cars. I mean, it has increased in the last couple of years since this new car has come out, and that's where they're making that chunk of money that they spent back. But business-wise, you can't blame them for it. I mean, they made a product. It's late model racing, any form of dirt racing, you go in waves. You know, Rocket was big in the 2000s, you know, early 2000s, even late 2000s, and then you get 2011, 12. Longhorn hit the market, you know, 13, 14. I mean, Longhorn been around since 2010, but they really hit big, you know, 13, 14, 15, that area. Black Diamond came in strong in the 2012 to 2015 area. You know, everybody goes in waves, and Rocket made their next stride. They got them back on top, and their prices went up, and you paid for the fact that they suffered for 4 to 6 years. And they do it for a business, and I mean, that's their business. That's what they're there to make money for. But at the same time, we're all going to pay it because we want the next best thing. So I guess racing, yes, it increases costs every year a lot due to inflation. But the comment that was made earlier that races are their own enemies is exactly the truth. I mean, I could still have my '05 black front end Rocket that I had when I first started racing. I was still winning races in it when I sold it, but in order for me to go travel and race on this national level, I can't have that car because nobody has that car. Plus, you know, it's just you don't go racing nationally with old equipment and expect to even make the race, let alone be competitive.
Right. You just can't. I mean, the way that this sport changes so fast, if you don't have, and I'll use the words, the best of the best or top flight equipment, you're not going to be competitive. You're not going to make the show. Even the average driver, with great equipment, has a better chance.
A lot of what we talked about earlier today was, I mean, equipment is a big thing, and then the technology behind equipment is a big thing, but then knowing how to work on it. A lot of these guys, not saying it's a bad thing, have this high-dollar equipment, but really don't know what each piece means, which means that somebody that does know that has to work for them. So that's an added cost because you're now hiring somebody to work on your car because you don't understand the new theories, or you're paying somebody to help fit your car up, and then you lose that grassroots touch of you doing everything on your car, and that takes money. You know, we pretty much do everything here by ourselves, and that's why we build shocks, and that's why we spend the money on the things that we have. Because yes, initially the investment is huge, but at the end of the day, we've learned something that keeps us up to date to the next level with the guys that are running across the country, and we may not be as good as those guys, but at least we understand what they're doing so that we can make ourselves better doing it. But that raises costs, either hiring a guy to do it for you or buying the equipment so that you can do it yourself.
Right. Absolutely. So here's a question, and this is something that today I really actually did a little research on. You work pretty close with Rocket and that gang there, being that you're in the Rocket cars. Several teams today have mentioned Docol tubing. This new tube that a lot of drivers are using. How much does that particular tubing, really raise the cost of these cars? And what is the performance? I mean, I'll be honest, I haven't worked on a late model since 2011 when I started announcing in 2012. I hadn't even heard of this stuff.
I mean, I do know from firsthand experience with it. It does the performance characteristics of the car is a large advantage by going to a Delco tubing. For a while we were all on DOM, but through these pull-down rigs that these people are buying and developing these cars on, they have found that a mild steel car, to buy the tubing for a mild steel car, is about $500. A DOM car was around $900 to $1,000. A Delco tubing car is about $3,500.
Just for the tubing.
Advantage, just to buy just for the tubing.
Wow.
The difference is the flex in the car and how the car will come back to its original state. And so they found all this information out, and there was an advantage to that tubing that they could place a bar in a certain spot of the car and change the characteristics of the car with this tubing. Back like on a mild steel car, it was these guys are laying tube out and figuring out where the seams are and how it all goes together. And so it was an advantage for them. For a while there, Rocket was basically creating a frame. Then they were putting it through a stress relief shakedown rig and then heat treating it. So it's all cost. But it helped them develop a car that was reproducible, meaning that if I bought a car and a guy in West Virginia bought a car and a guy in California bought a car, they were pretty much the same as far as you could set a car up with the same setup factor and they would react the same. I've had other car manufacturers where I have literally bought a car one after another and they were not the same cars. And it's a tubing thing.
Well,
when they put the frame together and how the seams laid out in the tubing and where they placed them, they would just had totally different characteristics. So they had found that this tubing there was an advantage to it. And so a lot of chassis manufacturers, I know like Rocket and Longhorn and your Black Diamonds or Club 29s, switch to this tubing for repeatability on these cars.
Which makes sense. It sounds like you're getting a way more consistent race car as you produce them from the jig. Every car is almost identical, whereas before, I get what you're saying, because the Rayburn cars were notorious for you could buy 5 Rayburn cars and they were all different, back in the old days. Now you've got this new tubing that's creating a way more consistent race car for drivers to give these guys back better feedback to keep the cars more consistent and performing better. So before the car's even built, there's already $3,000 more cost from what it was with the DOM versus the Dokal.
Yeah, and just like the Rockets, I've been a dealer since 2001. Their cars have gone up over the years, but the biggest piece of that car that's gone up is the cost of the frame. Granted, you're paying more for the technology, the engineering, and the wind tunnel testing, and all the different things that they're doing to these cars so they can design and build a body, to be the most aerodynamic and all the things. But their chassis have doubled in price in the last probably 5-6 years.
And
actually,
most
probably
of that,
about the last 3 years, they've doubled in price. Back in the day, you could buy a frame for $4,000. Now you can't touch a frame for $8,000.
bare frame. Is that a
What's
bare?
that?
You're talking about a bare frame.
Bare frame, just nothing, no powder coating, just frame.
Wow.
And so the pieces and parts that bolt onto the cars, I'll be honest with you, over the years, I've been doing this a long time. They really hasn't gone up that no more than, inflation or cost of living.
Right.
You're still buying a spindle for the same price, a lower, and, granite rear ends have gone up a little bit, but a lot of that's going to most of your rear end manufacturers are using EDM bearings and low drag, and, that piece of it's changed. And, but the cost for the basic parts on your car have not gone up a ton. And so, and it's, that's the little pieces where I think, we talk about costs. I agree that costs have gone up, but not as much as in my opinion, as much as people think it's gone up. Us as racers, like we were talking earlier today, 15 years ago at Lima Speedway, there were maybe, realistically, when I first started racing, there were 2 guys that were going to win the race. And I guarantee if you sat down with those 2 guys and asked them how much they spend, they probably don't spend a lot less than what we spend right now. But they were on top of things, and they knew what they were doing.